we'd love to hear, how did you find yourself working in the world of comics, and what brought you to IDW?
If anyone can figure that out, please let me know. I'm still trying to find out how I got here. I mean, I've always written and drawn my own stories. Like, comics have been a part of my life, whether or not I knew they were comics since I was a little kid. I wrote my own stories. I drew my own stories. I grew up watching the X-Men animated show and the Burt Ward, Adam West Batman show, like all of that stuff as a kid. So it was just kind of a natural progression to get to a point where when I was older and learned that, people do comics for a living, that for me it wasn't a like, I'd really like to do that someday, but more so how am I going to get there? I'm going to get there. I'm going to figure it out. And so, like most of us here, I just started making my own comics. I kind of learned on the job, figured it out, went to a lot of these Comic Cons, and networked and met people. And that's how I met Jordan White, who's an editor at Marvel. And he got to a point where he was looking for an assistant editor. Knew I had been producing my own comics, and asked if I wanted to interview. So like anything, it's you're putting in the hard work for very little money, probably spending money, and I was very fortunate to have the right amount of experience when the opportunity came along.
So let's talk about the experience of editing.
Mm-hmm.
You've had experience with Marvel, with IDW, with others as well now. I would just love to hear, what is your creative process when you're working with your teams? Like, what is your style of leadership and engagement when it comes to editing the world of comics?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. Every single project, I like to adapt to what a creator needs, what a specific project needs. And, I think I've been working with Jackson and Colin, right, on Star Trek for 2 years now, but before that I worked with them on a book called Harbinger at Valiant, right, and the way we work together on these projects are very, very different because the projects call and need something different. And I kind of equate being an editor, being a good editor, to like being Google Maps algorithm, right? You put in your destination, right, what the intent, what the goal of the comic is, and you're going to get different options. You're going to get the toll route. You're going to get the fuel-efficient route. You might get the scenic route. You might get the route with the fewer turns, right? And it's us figuring out which route we want to take together. And sometimes we might take a wrong turn. There's a detour. There's an accident, right? And we got to reroute and figure that out together to get the very best comic we can. And so there's a lot of adaptability, a lot of flexibility. Some creators hate email and want to do everything via phone. Great, I'll call them and talk them out. I think, it's really on me to get the best work out of the creators I'm working with. So I shouldn't have to ask them to work the way I work, right? I want to be able to work with them the best way that they work.
Well, let's go back to your origins a little bit more. Yesterday we were talking about the first comic you remember having an impact, and it's one that's near and dear to my heart. I'd love you to share just the
the first comic I ever bought with my own money was Secret Origins, Green Lantern. I would say Green Lantern is probably my first favorite comic book superhero. I mean, I grew up with Batman, but I grew up with Batman on TV, right, in the movies, and I don't think I read my first Batman comic until I was well into probably college. I read the only two superhero comic books I read for the longest time were Green Lantern and Deadpool, and which are two very different superheroes, but here we are. But yeah, I collect a lot of Green Lantern. My comic shelf, is Marvel books, DC books, and my DC shelf is mostly Green Lantern. So Kyle Rayner for life.
We're gonna have to exchange some photos for Green Lantern stuff later on.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the origins of Gwenpool.
Heard of her?
Yeah, I know. I've heard that you had a little bit of involvement with her development.
I did, yeah. Gwenpool is a fascinating character. She came about because in 2015, Marvel was launching the first Spider-Gwen comics by Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez, and Marvel doing their infamous variant cover months, right? They did a month of mashup Gwen Stacy covers. So Gwen Stacy is Wolverine, Gwen Stacy is Iron Man, Gwen Stacy as Deadpool, right? And Chris Picciolo, genius that he is, came up with the original design for Gwenpool. You know, it's this her floating on a little tube with a drink in that pink and white iconic outfit, with a, you know, dead Hydra agent, I think, floating nearby. And that image went viral. Within a couple weeks, people were already cosplaying her. There's fan art of her, and Marvel, liking money, was like, great, we want to create her and make her her own character. But at that time, Sony had the rights to Gwen Stacy, and Fox had the rights to Deadpool. So whoever this Gwenpool character was going to be could not be Gwen Stacy or Deadpool in any way, shape, or form. And so they came to us in the Deadpool office to try and figure out, like, how do we make this work? The powers that be decided her story had to debut in Howard the Duck because it was a solely Marvel-owned property. And, you know, since Gwenpool came to us because the fans loved her so much, we wanted to give her back to the fans, and that's how Gwendolyn Poole came to be the biggest Marvel fan ever, who one day woke up in the Marvel universe.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Last question for you is, what are you excited about in the industry right now? What are you reading, or what's coming up that is really just thrilling for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm biased because it's one of my books, but I've been working on it for 2 years now. We just announced it earlier this year. The Exorcism at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue by Hannah Rose May, Vanessa Del Rey, Jordi Belair, and Hassan Otsmane Elhau. I mean, the title speaks for itself. I don't want to give too much away. It's on sale October 16th, the first issue, 44 pages. We have, you know, the first 2 chapters all in an oversized #1 issue, just in time for election season. Very spooky. It's who gets possessed is not who you think, and I'll just tease with that. But it's a very timely story of a political horror, and I'm very excited for it to be out there. And Vanessa Del Rey is just like, she's so good, and every time I worked with her on Redlands years ago, and just every time I get to work with her on something, the way she elevates just the story and her choices and pan out layouts, like, she draws these pages and you don't think that they should work in the way that they do, but they do, and it's genius. Like, it's just incredible.